Police Chief Thomas Walker, a black man, is mistaken for a yard sale vendor in his own yard by a presumptuous white woman. What starts as a simple misunderstanding escalates into a tense confrontation, exposing deep-seated biases. When she calls 911 on the chief, falsely accusing him of abuse of power, the situation takes an unexpected turn, leading to a moment of reflection and a chance for redemption. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Chief Thomas Walker's immaculately manicured lawn. He knelt, carefully adjusting the sprinkler head to ensure even coverage for his prized rose bushes. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the sweet perfume of the blossoms, a symphony of suburban tranquility. He relished these moments of peace, a stark contrast to the often turbulent world he navigated daily as the police chief of the small town of Oakhaven. He wore faded jeans, a simple gray t-shirt, and a baseball cap shielding his eyes, a deliberate attempt to blend into the background, to simply be Thomas, not Chief Walker, for a little while. He had spent the morning at a regional law enforcement conference, listening to presentations on de-escalation tactics and community policing, concepts he championed and actively implemented in Oakhaven. He believed in building bridges, in fostering trust between his officers and the community they served, a philosophy forged in the crucible of his own experiences as a black man in America. He heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway and glanced up, expecting to see his wife, Sarah, returning from her volunteer shift at the local library. Instead, a gleaming white SUV pulled to a stop, and a woman emerged, her face partially obscured by oversized sunglasses and a cascade of blonde hair. She was the epitome of affluent suburban chic, her outfit radiating effortless style and expensive understatement. He straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans, a polite smile forming on his lips. "Good afternoon," he began. But before he could finish, the woman strode towards him, her voice a sharp, demanding tone that shattered the afternoon's serenity. "All right, let's get this over with. I don't have all day." Thomas's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "Excuse me?" The woman gestured dismissively towards the neatly arranged collection of his daughter's old toys, a vintage radio he was planning to restore, and a stack of books he was sorting through for donation. "All this stuff. I saw the signs you put up, so I figured I'd come early and get first dibs." Thomas blinked, realization dawning. She thought he was having a yard sale. "Ma'am, I'm not having a yard sale. These are just things I'm sorting through." The woman's smile faltered, replaced by a look of thinly veiled impatience. "Oh, come on. Don't give me that. I know a yard sale when I see one. Look, I'm doing you a favor by taking all this clutter off your hands. I'll give you $20 for the whole lot." Thomas chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I'm not selling anything." The woman's face hardened. "Don't be ridiculous. You're having a yard sale and I'm here to buy. Now, are you going to haggle with me? Or are we going to do this the easy way?" Thomas took a deep breath, consciously suppressing the irritation that was beginning to simmer within him. He dealt with difficult people every day, but there was something about this woman's entitlement, her assumption, that rubbed him the wrong way. He reminded himself of the de-escalation techniques he had just reviewed that morning. "Ma'am, I understand the misunderstanding, but I assure you, this is not a yard sale. These are personal belongings." The woman crossed her arms, her sunglasses glinting in the sun. "Look, I don't have time for games. I saw the signs. I drove all the way over here. I expect you to honor your advertisement." Thomas hadn't put up any signs. He hadn't advertised anything. This woman was simply assuming, based on the color of his skin and the presence of items in his yard, that he was having a yard sale. The injustice of it stung. "Ma'am, there are no signs. You are mistaken." The woman scoffed. "Oh, please, Don't insult my intelligence. I saw them clear as day. Big, bright yellow signs. Now, are you going to give me a price? Or do I have to call someone who will? Thomas's patience finally snapped. The years of dealing with subtle and not-so-subtle prejudices, the constant microaggressions, the weight of expectations placed upon him as a black man in a position of authority, all coalesced in this moment. He felt a familiar weariness settle over him, a weariness that ran deeper than just this encounter. "Ma'am, I am asking you to leave my property. There is no yard sale. You are trespassing." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Trespassing? On what grounds? I'm a potential customer. You can't just kick me off your property." Thomas sighed. "Ma'am, I am asking you politely to leave. If you do not, I will be forced to take further action." The woman threw her head back and laughed, a high-pitched, shrill sound. "Oh, I'm so scared. What are you going to do? Call the police? Go ahead. I'll tell them you're trying to cheat me out of a good deal." Thomas reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He flipped it open, displaying his police badge and identification. "Ma'am, I am the police. Thomas Walker, Chief of Police for the town of Oakhaven. And I am telling you, you are trespassing. Now, please leave." The woman's laughter died in her throat. Her eyes widened behind her sunglasses, and a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. But the entitlement, the ingrained sense of superiority, quickly resurfaced. That's not possible. You can't be. There's no way." Thomas maintained eye contact, his expression firm and unwavering. "Ma'am, I assure you it is possible. And I am asking you for the final time to leave my property." The woman hesitated, her mind clearly struggling to reconcile the reality of the situation with her preconceived notions. She glanced around nervously, as if expecting to see someone, anyone, to confirm her disbelief. Then, she spoke, her voice laced with a mixture of indignation and disbelief. "This is ridiculous. You're just trying to intimidate me. I know my rights. I have a right to purchase items at a yard sale." Thomas shook his head. "Ma'am, you have a right to purchase items at a legitimate yard sale, which this is not. You are currently on private property, and I am asking you to leave. If you refuse, I will be forced to issue you a citation for trespassing." The woman's face flushed crimson. "You wouldn't dare." Thomas remained silent, his gaze unwavering. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the gentle whir of the sprinkler. Finally, the woman broke the silence, her voice trembling with rage. Fine. I'm leaving, but I'm calling 911. I'm reporting you for abuse of power." Thomas sighed again, the weariness deepening. He knew this was coming. He had seen it before, the reflexive resort to authority, the weaponization of privilege. "Ma'am, you are free to call 911, but I assure you, you are wasting their time and yours." The woman stomped back to her SUV, fumbling with her keys. She glared at Thomas, her eyes blazing with anger. "You haven't heard the last of this. I'm going to report you to the mayor. I'm going to sue you. You'll regret this." She slammed the door of her SUV and screeched out of the driveway, leaving a cloud of dust and a lingering sense of unease in the air. Thomas watched her go, a complex mix of emotions swirling within him. He was angry, frustrated, and deeply saddened by the encounter. He had dedicated his life to serving and protecting his community, to building bridges and fostering understanding, and yet he was still subjected to this kind of blatant disrespect and prejudice. He knew that this incident, seemingly minor in the grand scheme of things, was a reflection of a deeper problem, a problem rooted in ingrained biases and systemic inequalities. He took a deep breath and tried to regain his composure. He needed to prepare for the inevitable fallout, the complaints, the accusations, the whispers behind his back. He knew that some people in Oakhaven, even some of his own officers, would question his actions, would accuse him of being too sensitive, of playing the race card. He had heard it all before. He returned to his rose bushes, adjusting the sprinkler head with meticulous care. He tried to focus on the task at hand, to find solace in the simple beauty of his garden. But the woman's words, her accusatory tone, her blatant disregard for his humanity, echoed in his mind. He knew that he had handled the situation professionally, that he had acted within his authority. But that didn't make it any easier. The phone rang, startling him. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was the Oakhaven Police Department dispatch. He answered the phone, bracing himself for what was to come. "Chief Walker, we just received a 911 call from a woman claiming you." "Well, I think you should hear it yourself." The dispatcher's voice was hesitant, laced with a mixture of concern and awkwardness. Thomas sighed. "Put it through." He listened as the recording of the 911 call played, the woman's voice shrill and hysterical. "I need help. I'm being harassed by a police officer. He's abusing his power. He's trying to cheat me out of a yard sale." The dispatcher's voice interrupted the recording. "Ma'am, can you provide your location?" The woman's voice, still frantic, replied, I don't know the address. It's some house on Elm Street with a black man in the yard. He says he's the police chief, but I don't believe him. He's just trying to intimidate me." The recording ended. Thomas closed his eyes, a wave of exhaustion washing over him. He could already imagine the chaos that this call would unleash, the investigations, the internal reviews, the media inquiries. He knew that he would be under scrutiny, his actions dissected and analyzed, his motives questioned. He opened his eyes and spoke into the phone. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will handle it from here. Please inform the officers that no further action is required." He hung up the phone and stood for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He knew that he couldn't let this incident define him, that he couldn't allow the woman's prejudice to diminish his commitment to his community. He had a job to do, a responsibility to uphold. He walked towards his house, his steps deliberate and purposeful. As he reached the front door, he saw Sarah pulling into the driveway. She smiled at him, her eyes filled with warmth and affection. He returned her smile, finding strength in her presence. He knew that he wasn't alone, that he had her support, her love, to sustain him through the challenges ahead. He opened the door and stepped inside, ready to face whatever the day might bring. Later that evening, after dinner, as Thomas was catching up on paperwork in his home office, he received an unexpected visitor. A tentative knock echoed through the house. He opened the door to find the woman from earlier that afternoon standing on his porch, her face etched with shame and remorse. She looked significantly less composed than she had earlier, her hair disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. "Chief Walker," she began, her voice barely a whisper. I wanted to apologize." Thomas regarded her silently, waiting for her to continue. I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake. I assumed I shouldn't have." Her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am, you did." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I was so entitled. I thought, because of who I am, that I could I'm so ashamed." Thomas studied her face, searching for any sign of insincerity. He saw genuine remorse, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. He knew that an apology wouldn't erase the hurt, that it wouldn't undo the damage that had been done. But it was a start. "Ma'am, I appreciate your apology. I hope that you will take this experience as an opportunity to reflect on your actions and to learn from your mistakes." The woman nodded fervently. "I will. Promise. I'm going to take some classes, learn more about diversity and inclusion. I want to be a better person." Thomas nodded again. "That's a commendable goal. I wish you the best of luck." The woman hesitated for a moment, then spoke again, her voice filled with a newfound humility. "Chief Walker, I know that I don't deserve it, but could you ever find it in your heart to forgive me?" Thomas looked at her, his expression thoughtful. He knew that forgiveness was a process, not a one-time event. He also knew that holding on to anger and resentment would only poison his own spirit. He took a deep breath and extended his hand. "Ma'am, I forgive you, but I also hope that you will remember this day and that you will strive to treat everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their race, their background, or their social status." The woman grasped his hand, her grip firm and sincere. "I will, Chief Walker. I promise you I will." She released his hand and turned to leave, her shoulders slumped with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Thomas watched her walk away, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over him. He knew that he had done the right thing, that he had chosen forgiveness over bitterness, understanding over resentment. He closed the door and returned to his paperwork, his heart a little lighter, his spirit a little stronger. He knew that the fight for equality and justice was far from over, but he also knew that every small act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every step towards reconciliation made a difference. He was the police chief of Oakhaven, and he was determined to continue building bridges, to fostering trust, to creating a community where everyone felt safe, respected, and valued. Even the woman who had mistaken his home for a yard sale.